Hey, what's up you guys? Today I wanted to do a book talk discussing The Queen of Nothing, which is the third book in the Folk of the Air trilogy by Holly Black. So this series is about a mortal girl who grows up in a fairy world. So when she is a child, she gets taken by her mother's previous husband, who is a fairy, and he raises her there. She learns to kind of love the fairy world and she wants to make it better. So overall, I would give Queen of Nothing a 4 out of 5 stars. I did really enjoy this book. I liked how badass the main character was. Her name is Jude. And I also really liked how in this book we kind of got to see her in the mortal world as well as the fairy world, and I kind of liked seeing her in that different role and seeing her develop further. I also enjoy how fast-paced and exciting this book was, and I loved the fairy politics in it. It wasn't super boring like it can be in some other books. I loved it so much in this one. It was written so well, and it was honestly just so exciting from start to finish. You're always on the edge of your seat. You're always wondering what's happening next, and the romance in it is so steamy too. So those are all the things that I liked in this book. What I didn't really like in this book was the overall villain, so I don't want to get into too much detail as to who the villain in the last book of this series is, because if you haven't read the previous 2 books, it is kind of a spoiler. But I did feel like the villain in this book was not that impressive, and honestly it felt kind of petty to me that this whole war was still going on in this book, because it just felt so petty. And then I also didn't like how some of the characters just weren't very consistent, and that's an issue that I had with the previous book too. It wasn't as bad in this one as it was in The Wicked King, but it still wasn't my favorite thing in the world. If you have not read this book or the previous 2 books, I'm about to get into my spoilery part of this review, so if you would like to read them, I would read them, or if you would like more info about the series and the premise, you can check out my Cruel Prince book talk. In that book talk, I talk a little bit more about what this series is about. So let's just kick it off with the beginning. So I really enjoyed the beginning of this book. The opening was just so captivating because I really just loved seeing Jude in the mortal world. I loved seeing her interact with different people and being in this different setting, because in all the previous books you only really see her in fairy. You don't see her really anywhere else. You don't see her interact with anyone else. You don't see what she would be if she weren't where she is. It honestly just kind of reminded me of some of the things that I liked in some of the shows that I've watched in the past. It really reminded me of this show called Lost Girl. It's about a succubus who was just trying to survive, and it's great. So I'd actually recommend that show if you liked this book. The first season's pretty great. I don't really remember what I felt about the rest of the seasons, but I remember that I really enjoyed the first season. So after we see Jude in the mortal world a little bit, Taryn comes in and she killed Locke, and I was like so happy when that happened. I was like, you badass, you go girl. Like, I hated Taryn in the rest of the books. I didn't really talk about her that much because I felt like she was kind of petty like Maddox, but oh my god, I loved that she killed Locke, because Locke deserved it. He was the most annoying character ever. He was so rude, so disrespectful, and I'm so glad that he died. I feel like I sound like a psychopath when I say that, but you know what? That's just my opinion. And so Taryn needs Jude to pretend to be her so that Jude can answer questions and say that she didn't kill Locke without lying. So when Jude goes to leave, Oak runs up to her and gives her a squeeze hug, which I just thought was such a cute moment. So I loved the cute moments that we got to see in this book, because this family, they are so messed up, but they are also so tight in a way that no other family would ever be. So when Jude goes in and pretends to be Taryn to try to prevent her from getting in trouble for the murder of Locke, Carden finds out that it's Jude and is able to kind of subtly get Jude on her own. But in the process, Jude kind of gets abducted by Maddox, who still believes that she is Taryn, and Jude finds Ghost with Maddox. Then Carden comes and saves Jude, but it's kind of at the last minute, and Maddox has discovered that it was Jude the whole time at this point. So at this point I was just thinking about Maddox and how petty he came across to me. He really did not listen to Jude ever. It felt like he was almost offended that she was besting him, and in my opinion he should have been proud. He should have been proud that his daughter was besting him. I mean, your purpose as a parent is to train your children to be better than you were, and that is what he did, because Jude was beating him. And so I just thought he was so petty that he wasn't just gonna let up and say, hey, you won, because she did. At that point, she had pretty much won. All he was doing was just being a nuisance. Like, they had the numbers on their side. It's just, it's so frustrating because it's so annoying. Like, he should have just recognized defeat, because at that point he didn't have the resources to win, and it kind of felt that way this entire book, that he never really had the resources to win. So I never took him seriously throughout this entire book, which was one of the things that frustrated me, because I normally like a good villain, and the thing is in order for a villain to be good, you have to feel that there are stakes involved, and I just didn't get those stakes because I didn't see a ending where our main characters didn't win, because they really did have the resources the entire time. They had the numbers, they had the people. Really the only thing that Madoc had was his mind and his strategic planning, but even then we didn't really get to see that much of his overall strategy. So it's just kind of frustrating that we never got to see any of that. So after Carden comes to save Jude, Jude makes her escape, and Grima Mog comes back. She was kind of in the mortal world for a little bit, and now she's back in the fairy world, and I freaking loved her this entire book. I thought she was so funny and so amusing. She's really smart, and I was just so surprised when she came in and helped save Jude. I was not expecting her at all, but I am so glad that she made an appearance and that she became kind of one of our characters in this book. So after Carden saves Jude, he finally accepts her and allows her to be pardoned, even though technically she had the ability to pardon herself the entire time. And from that point on, the story is really focused on how do we defeat Madoc. So the final battle with Madoc comes around, and Carden breaks the crown and winds up turning into a snake. And at this point, Madoc wants to strike a deal to make Jude essentially a puppet ruler, with him controlling the strings. And again, it just comes across as super petty to me, because why would she agree to that? And so at this point in the book, Jude is kind of wrestling with this decision of what is she going to do? Is she going to try and control Carden, or is she going to kill him, or what is she going to do? And she winds up killing the snake, thinking that she is killing the person that she loves, but turns out that is how she broke the curse to save Carden, and I loved that. I kind of saw that coming, not gonna lie, but I did really enjoy that. And so overall, I was pretty happy with how this book ended, because the main characters that we wanted got on the throne and got what they wanted in the end. And I really enjoyed the epilogue. I thought it was really well written. And some other things that I enjoyed as a whole in this book is I loved Heather coming back to Vivi, and I loved Vivi. I thought Vivi was so funny in this book, and I would love to have Vivi as a sister. So yeah, that is my overall thoughts and feelings on The Queen of Nothing. As a whole, I really enjoyed this series. The Cruel Prince is probably my favorite book in the series, with The Wicked King being my second favorite and The Queen of Nothing being my least favorite. The reason why Queen of Nothing is my least favorite is just because I do not like Madoc as a villain. I did not see him as anyone who was ever gonna win. He was just so petty to me and so frustrating, and I was just ready for him to go away. And then the transition period from it being Madoc who's the bad guy to Carden being a snake was just kind of weird to me, and it kind of changed the central focus of who the villain is. It just kind of changed the central focus of what our main climactic ending was gonna be, and so I just didn't like that as much. But it was still an amazing book series, and I do highly recommend it if you are looking for something new to read right now. And so if you would like to discuss anything that I mentioned in this video or anything about the series as a whole, feel free to comment in the comment section down below. And if you liked this video, please like and subscribe. I post videos on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays, so I will see you then. Bye!